Let's talk about Run, an asymmetric hidden movement game of cops and robbers. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. In this episode, I'm excited to tell you about a brand new game from the folks over at Fowers Games. Now, Tim Fowers is the guy who designed my favorite co-op game of all time, Burgle Bros, which is on the shelf behind me here. And so I like Fowers Games. I was very excited to back this one on Kickstarter. So it's just delivered recently, which means it should be more widely available soon. And I'll put some information in the show notes. It might be hard to find Run. If you Google Run, what's going to come up? Probably not this board game. But here's the box for Run. This is a 2-player game. It works with kids age 14 and up. I mean, 12 and 13-year-olds might be able to figure this one out, and there is a ranking system to balance out player skill. But 14 and up, it says on the box, games only take about 20 minutes to play. Let's take a deeper look at Run from Fowers Games. Run is a light to medium hidden movement game. And I've laid everything out here on the table so that you can see everything. But that's not going to be what it looks like when you set things up to play, because each player is going to be opposite the other. And you're going to have a screen like this in front of your map so that the other player can't see what you're doing. Now, these screens are great. There's one for each player. The red one's for the dispatch, the cop. A blue one over here for the runner. Now, what I like about these screens is that they're kind of like the GM screens that you would have for a role-playing game, because they've got all the important rules and information on the inside of the screen, so that if you need to check something, you don't have to pull out the rule book every time. Just about everything you could think of is here on the screen. One player is going to act as the runner. The other player is dispatch. These are the police who have a helicopter. They're trying to track the runner down. And the goals are asymmetric and gameplay is asymmetric here. The runner will win if he's able to collect 3 gadgets. That's these tiles, these black tiles that are here on the board. He needs to collect 3 gadgets and then get to one of these safe houses without getting caught. Meanwhile, dispatch wants to hit the runner 2 times with their stun gun or their sonic blast that they have. Each player has an identical map. The runner is going to have their tokens for their gadgets here on the board. Really, there's nothing on the dispatch board other than maybe some cubes to help them remember where the runner has been, or to remind them of important information about tracking that runner down. Underneath the runner's map is going to be this board where they have their movement tiles. That's how the runner is going to take their turns. These 5 action tiles are going to be beneath the dispatcher's board. They just flip them over to show that they've taken that action. Now, the dispatcher can choose to skip their turn to flip all of these tiles back up so that all of their actions are available once again. But once they've used all 5 and they're all flipped face down, then they don't lose a turn. It automatically recharges. Between the 2 players is this evidence board, and this is where the runner is going to put their movement tiles as they take their turn. The runner and the dispatcher both have the same maps. So there are a pile of maps in the box. Each one has a different layout of buildings. Some of them have additional features. There are advanced maps that have water features and things like that on them. This is the basic level 1 tutorial map. And the buildings are important because you can go down a building from a roof, but you need a fire escape if you're the runner to get up on top. A helicopter, of course, it doesn't matter. The other thing you might be able to see on both maps are these little cars. So in the tutorial missions in the lower ranked games, dispatch gets to place these surveillance vans on 2 of the areas where the gadgets are going to be stored. These are 2 stashes, 2 of the runner's stashes that you know they're going to arrive there at some point in the game. And if the runner does land on one of those spots, they have to tell dispatch when they leave that space. Dispatch knows that starting space. I've placed one of these clear cubes on there so that you can remember where that runner is going to start. And the runner begins the game by taking 2 turns. So runner always goes first, and he takes 2 turns right at the start, with dispatch knowing where he's starting from. There are a couple of different kinds of moves you can do. Silent moves are going to be hidden from dispatch, but you can sprint and move farther and faster, but that's noisy and the dispatcher is going to know which direction you're moving in. When you're ready to take your first turn, you are going to choose one of these tiles as the runner and place it on the evidence board. That's how this game works. So I might want to hit this stash right away. It's very close to my starting point. So I can always go down from a building. So maybe my first move will be to go down. Once I take this tile off my board, because that's a silent move, I flip it over before I put it on the evidence board. And now dispatcher doesn't know which direction I'm going in. They only know that I've taken a move. So now I'm down here in the corner and I get 2 turns at the start of the game. So my next move might be either to silently hit that stash, or maybe I'm going to sprint. That might be a bluff so that dispatch thinks I've gone all the way across the board, because I can move as far as I want. If I take these sprints, I can go as far as I want, as long as there's no building in the way, up or down or left or right. But the trick is that dispatch is going to know which way I'm going. My hope would be that dispatch thinks I'm moving to the other side of the board over here and maybe going for this stash first, but now I've got my gadget. This one is a smoke bomb, and it's basically a wild card. I can move in any direction. Until that gadget is used, though, it's just going to stay here on my board. Remember, I want to get 3 out of 4 of those gadgets, and then I need to get to a safe house. That's how the runner's going to win the game. Once that runner has taken their 2 turns, now dispatch has to puzzle things out. The helicopter can move up or down or left or right as far as it wants, and then it takes one of those actions by flipping their tile. So maybe I'm going to take the bait here and think that the runner is going this way. And so I move my helicopter into the middle of the board, and then I can decide, am I going to use a stun gun, or maybe I'm just going to scan to see if they actually did come in this direction. So these actions that dispatch can take are, you can scan a row or a column, you can use your floodlights to light up some spaces on the board, or you can try and hit the runner with your sonic blast or your stun gun. Remember, you have to hit the runner twice in order for dispatch to win. If I scan, I just say, well, I'm going to scan this row that I'm in, and then the runner has to tell me if they're in that row. They don't have to tell me what space they're in. If instead I use the floodlight, then the runner has to tell me exactly where they are if they're in that space. Otherwise, they just say that they miss. And of course, if I shoot with my stun gun and I hit the runner, he has to tell me that he's been hit, and he can only be hit twice. I've scanned this column. The runner has told me that he's not in that column at all. That's a miss, and that means that I get to draw a backup card. So this can be like a second turn for the dispatcher. And as the game goes on, these actions become more powerful, and it might make it easier for you to locate where the runner is on the board in order to be able to hit them. At the beginning, you can only use the top action once you've missed 3 times, or the runner has used a gadget, you get to use either the top or the second one. And once the runner has used 2 gadgets, or there are 6 discards in the pile, then you can use any of the 3. And some of these actions are really fun. So the one that I just showed you, I could scan an entire quadrant. I could say, well, okay, is he still in this quadrant over here on the map? And the runner would have to, it's just scanning. He doesn't have to tell me exactly where he is, but he has to say if he's in the quadrant or not. There are some little stick figures here on the board that show which direction they're looking. And sometimes you might get a witness card that allows you to scan all of those areas where there's a witness, and then the runner would have to tell you if he's in their line of sight. And then it just goes back and forth. The runner then takes a move, the dispatch tries to track that runner down, and it continues until one or the other player has won the game. As soon as the victory condition is met, the game is over. There's not an extra turn to try and track that runner down. There are some limited resources here. So as I said, the dispatcher can recharge these actions at any time and use them over and over again, but these tiles are coming off the runner's board, and then they can't reuse them. Once these are exhausted, if you can't take an action, well, then the runner is exhausted. You lose all of your gadgets. You have to flip this card over, and then you can only move 1 space, and you have to tell dispatcher where you're moving. You're too tired to be quiet and sneaky. The dispatcher doesn't get exhausted, but eventually they'll run out. Potentially, they might run out of these backup cards. There's only a certain number of those cards in the deck, and if they run out, then they just don't get a second action when they miss the runner on their turn. I mentioned at the beginning that there are ranks to balance this game out, and I think that's a really neat feature. of this thing. So there's a scorecard that came in the box, and you can write the player's name and check off if they won the game and whether they won as the runner or as the dispatcher. And as you check off those boxes, the more games you win in either role, the higher rank you are, and the game becomes more challenging for you. So if I'm playing against a new player, they're going to be at rank 1. That means if they're dispatched, they might get some pretty powerful backup actions. They also get the surveillance car. Now, once the dispatcher is playing at rank 3, there's no more surveillance cars, so you don't get any information about when the runner runs over certain spaces. The runner, meanwhile, as soon as the runner gets up to rank 2, they lose one of their wild cards. The diagonal wild tile is gone from their board, so they only have one wild token now. And it does eventually become more complex. On later maps, more complicated maps, you can use advanced gadgets as well. This is a scuba mask that's going to allow you to travel through water more quickly and easily. The other one is a jet ski that allows you to do the same. So I'm an experienced player now. I usually played as the runner, honestly, when I tried out this game, and my opponent was the dispatcher. I won a few games, so now I'm no longer at rank 1. I'm up to rank 3 as the runner here. And so that means that my game is going to be more difficult for me. But when I'm teaching a new player, they're going to start at rank 1, more of a tutorial rank. And so it's going to be a little bit easier for them to figure out the ins and outs of the game. So it's a nice handicapping system. What skills are you working on, though, when you play a game like Run? Well, this is a game where, especially as the runner, you really do have to budget these tiles and plan ahead to make sure that you've got the tiles that will allow you to get to the spaces that you want to get to. I found myself thinking, okay, I need to go this way first, but then if I spend this sprint tile, I won't be able to run back the other way. How am I going to have enough tiles to get where I need to go? So every once in a while, it would be pushing my luck and saying, well, I hope I get a jetpack because that will allow me to move 2 spaces. But you don't know what the gadget is until after you've collected it from your stash. So you are budgeting and planning ahead. There is some planning as the dispatcher here, but really there's a lot more involvement in terms of spatial skills because you're trying to think about, well, where can that runner move? Where might that runner be? You're trying to keep track of those clues. So you're using your visual spatial problem solving as either player. There's also a fluid reasoning or flexible problem solving component when you're playing as the dispatcher. You don't know where the runner's going. You know where they're trying to go, but there's still 2 options on the map. So the map has 2 possible safe houses that the runner can get to, but you know they need to gather those gadgets first. So you might be thinking about, well, okay, if I'm here in the middle of the board, I can sort of get myself up or down or left or right fast enough that maybe I can catch the runner before he gets to this point and shoot him with my stun gun. So there really is some flexible problem solving because the runner is trying to trick you. The other thing that's happening here is, of course, there's a deduction component. It's a hidden movement game. I'm trying to use these clues to figure out where the runner is going. Meanwhile, the runner is trying to kind of bluff and deceive and throw the dispatcher off the trail. You do have those social skills too. As the runner, you are trying to bluff. You are trying to say, "Oh my gosh, I have to get out of this. I have to get out of this quadrant right away." Or, "Ooh, I really want that thing at the top." You're trying to trick the dispatcher into thinking you're going in a different direction and then you're going somewhere else. So there is that bluffing element. Meanwhile, the dispatcher has to determine whether you're bluffing or not. So you're trying to send out some signals. Meanwhile, the dispatcher is trying to read your nonverbal cues. So there is a social element here as well in terms of bluffing and figuring out if the other player is bluffing. So you've got those executive functioning skills of planning ahead, of budgeting your actions and your turns and tackling things in the most efficient way possible. You've got the spatial skills of trying to figure out how to get where you need to go and where that runner is going. There's the deduction and fluid reasoning as the dispatcher. There's the social skills of trying to bluff and detect whether you're being fooled or not. But final thoughts about Run. Well, this is a game. I wouldn't say I've played a lot of hidden movement games in recent years. The most recent one was also by Fowers, a bluffing deduction hidden movement game called Fugitive, which I also enjoyed, but I prefer this one. This is my favorite hidden movement game. of any that I can think of that I've played. I really like the theme, that cops and robbers element, the helicopter with the floodlights and the stun gun who's chasing after the runner who's trying to get to the safe house. I think that's a lot of fun. The way this evidence board works, I think, is so clever. The backup actions that allow you to kind of scan different areas or get some extra clues about where the runner is. Extra clues that sometimes include flipping over these secret tiles so that you can see which ones have been used and get a better idea about which way the runner can go. It really is 100% a perfect hidden movement game when it comes to those elements like I've talked about. The components are great. You've got these great big thick tiles. The tokens here that the runner uses are fantastic as well. You've got a dry erase marker so that you can take some notes and track. These are wipe off cards so that you can track which tiles you know that the runner has used, just to make it easier for you to figure out which way that they can go. It's got that style, like all of the Fowers games, that kind of 60s style artwork that I also like. It's a very stylized runner. So the components are fantastic. It's a great implementation when it comes to a hidden movement game. You've got that ranking system that allows you to handicap and balance out the game, which I think is awesome as well. I haven't played a game in some time where there was that kind of balancing mechanism built in. And then there's those maps. There are a ton of maps with advanced features and various features that you might find a favorite, but we didn't play a lot on the advanced maps because we were really trying hard to learn the game and the ins and outs of the game. So I'm really looking forward to trying out Barcelona, which interestingly, I mean, look at this map. Now, if you've watched the video, I did talk about the Barcelona game and how the neighborhoods are built in Barcelona. And look at this. It's exactly like the buildings in the Barcelona board game. So this is a game that is a lot of fun. Now, if there are downsides, well, one is that it's 2-player only. So, if both of my kids are home, I can't play it with both of them at the same time. But I suspect one of them would prefer to kind of watch and sort of figure out who's bluffing and be the observer, maybe even. It is entertaining to watch as the players are trying to figure out that cat and mouse game that you're playing. But also, I mean, the only other thing I can think of about that rank system is that if I'm playing some players who just aren't very good, my rank might get artificially inflated. And now I'm at rank 4, but maybe I'm not really a very skilled player. I just won, because I was lucky or because the opponent I chose was a young person instead of someone who's more experienced with these kinds of games. So it's possible that your rank might get artificially inflated, but I really do like that ranking system. I like the note-taking element. I like that you're laying out these clues. I like the theme. I think that the actions are fun. The backup actions are a lot of fun, and we didn't go up to a high enough rank to even see all of these cards yet. They do get more advanced as you go. The gadgets are fun with the smoke bombs. There's a jetpack that can allow you to jump over a building and get where you need to go. There's a grappling hook and a crowbar. So, I mean, what a great game. What a good time if you've got only 2 players and you're interested in sort of a hidden movement deduction style game. Fowers Games has hit this one out of the park. Not enough people are talking about games by Tim Fowers and his publishing company, so let me put this one out there. I will put some notes about where to track this one down in the show notes of the video, but if you have any questions or suggestions or comments, you can leave them in the comments section, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go, and the previous ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the X handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.